There are still not many countries winning the fight with the COVID pandemic, but one, actually the biggest one, is feeling very optimistic, having just a few dozen cases per day, and it is celebrating in the skies. I'm not afraid, but for sure I must be the happiest base jumper on the planet right now, said Zhang Zupeng just seconds before setting off from the majestic Tiananmen Mountain, the center of base jumping and wingsuit proximity flying in China. Zhang is a shining aviation star in his country, belonging to the huge Red Bull family. He is famous for his many various base jumps. Now he is also the Chinese symbol of victory over the coronavirus. Actually, at the time of recording this, the first vaccinations in the world are happening right now in the UK. Fingers crossed for a better summer in 2021. Also breaking news right now is the death of aviation pioneer Chuck Yeager. More details to follow towards the end of the show in our Hall of Fame. But for now, let's catch up with all the latest news from the skies for the last 7 days and my two great special guests as well. I'm Regan Tetlow and this is Sports News. A total of 170 participants representing 57 countries attended the 114th FAI General Conference from the 2nd to the 5th of December. Traditionally an in-person event, the conference was moved online to accommodate to the health risks and travel difficulties raised by the pandemic. David Monks from the UK was elected unopposed for a 2-year mandate as the new FAI president. He succeeds Robert Henderson from New Zealand, who stepped down after holding the reins of the federation for 2 years. The best backcountry pilots in North America have been flying low and slow, competing in 6 different aircraft classes in the Central Florida Classic Stall competition at famed Paradise City. And what is also important, it was free to watch for all the viewers worldwide via Airshow TV Live. Unlike Reno Air Race Speed Contest, stall discipline is all about fighting to have the shortest takeoff and landing distances in the competition. In other words, you should take off as fast as possible and land as short as possible. If the weather conditions are good and the headwind is strong, pilots can take off using just a few meters of airstrip or land safely and come to a stop with their aircraft within 1 meter after touchdown. In this year's contest, Jeff Poy won the touring category. The best pilot in bush class was Austin Clemens, Jay Stanford in experimental class, and Steve Henry in light experimental. Congratulations to you all. Sad news now from Paris. Organisers of the Paris Air Show, having consulted with French Aerospace Industry Association, the GIFAS, have cancelled the event for 2021 because of what they termed uncertainty caused by the coronavirus pandemic. The show, which is held on alternate years with the UK's Farnborough International Air Show, cancelled in 2020 due to the pandemic, was to have taken place from the 21st to the 27th of June 2021. A new date will likely be in June 2023. It is the first time since the Second World War that the Paris Air Show has been cancelled. It normally attracts 300,000 attendees. So Reddit was blowing up on the evening of the 3rd of December with multiple reports of UFOs over the pyramids of Giza in Egypt. Take a look. People spotted a huge bright diamond on the night sky with a few single spots around. After a few minutes, the big structure had collapsed and changed into darkness. So, visitation from outside our solar system? Experimental aircraft? Let's find out what was really going on with my first special guest this week. Skydiving legend and canopy pilot, Pete Allen. I've been watching it every day on Instagram and on Facebook. You've got some amazing stuff coming up. Tell me what's going on.
A couple of weeks ago, I got a real interesting call from a good friend of mine, Mario Fataruso, him and his brother Armando. And they said they needed a factory team stand-in. They couldn't get the guys over. And they asked if I would come and help. And I was like, let me think about it. Yes.
And what is it? What kind of an event is it? What's happening?
So what's happening is they want to really move skydiving in Egypt. They want to move it forward. Rather than just having the military side of it and the events, which have been working for a while, they want to get something moving for tandems and regular skydivers to attract locals to skydive, but also bring foreigners to skydive as well. And so Skydive Pharaohs, that's the company that's doing it. Ahmed Biondi and Ehab, maybe you know some of those guys. I'm sure you'd recognize them for sure from Egypt. They've put this whole thing together, and they have been the most hospitable host you could imagine.
People on Reddit were at the pyramids on the 3 nights ago, I think the third nighttime, looking at the beautiful pyramids, and they saw this, what they thought was UFOs in the sky. There was lights moving. The video's brilliant. We'll put it on here afterwards. But there's lights moving and people are, oh my God, what's happening? What's happening? Who was that then?
I think I might know who that was, Regan. So one of the things they asked us to do was put on a whole bunch of pyro and jump out at night over Cairo. And so we said, yeah, let's get on it. And so they had Chris Gay and the crew guys. Yeah. They built a 9-way diamond and they had pyro all over it. And then myself, Armando, and Mario, we kind of swooped by Cheops' pyramid and landed. And so that's exactly what they were looking at. They were looking at pyro over Cairo.
Pyro over Cairo. I love it. I love it. Is this your first time jumping in Egypt, Pete? Have you been to one of the other events before?
No, this is my very first time. I do owe beer for that. I recognize that. Well done, Regan. Yeah, very first time in Egypt, and I can't wait to come back, to be honest.
How is this your last day? Do you have more days?
This is our last day. We literally just landed on the beach outside the hotel. I did a video of a tandem on my last jump. They had one of the local football stars from Ali Football Club, a guy called Ahmed. He retired a couple of years ago, and they said, will you come and we got a VIP, come and film, and you just had a biggest grin on his face. You know, I think he's going to be back.
I was talking with Pete for quite some time, and the full-length conversation with this amazing pilot is now available on our YouTube channel. Virgin Galactic confirmed that they will fly to suborbital space this Friday, the company announced on Monday. The test mission will be the first human spaceflight to lift off from New Mexico. The 2-pilot, 6-passenger Spaceship Two takes off from a runway beneath the wings of a carrier plane known as White Knight 2. At an altitude of about 50,000 feet, the spaceplane drops free and makes its own way to suborbital space with the aid of its onboard rocket motor. The spaceship company is currently building 2 other vehicles, one of which is expected to roll out of the factory in early 2021. As we're sadly out of sailplane sports contests for this year, we wanted to share with you some absolutely outstanding videos from pilots Jakob Switz and multiple sailplane world champion Sebastian Carver. They both made some gorgeous flights over the Beskidy Mountains in Poland and the Czech Republic. So let's move on to my second special guest. She is a passionate pilot, airshow sensation, and an aerobatics extraordinaire who is always pushing herself past boundaries and past what some think is unattainable. At the age of 12, she decided she wanted to become a pilot and hasn't looked back since. Please meet Jodie Ruger.
So I was looking at some of your footage, the Mustang, this 3/4 scale Mustang, and especially the noise of the engine you posted last week. Wow, that sounds amazing.
Yeah, we're very excited about it. It just did its very first engine runs, and we're hoping to have it flying early in the new year. But there'll be a lot of test flying to do before it's ready to really see what it's capable of.
And what's happening with air shows for you at the moment?
Right now, there's not a whole lot going on. 2020, I had 13 shows booked, all of them canceled. A lot of them pushed back a year, so we are still talking about doing the same shows for this season, provided everything turns out well. There's a vaccine on the horizon, so we're keeping our fingers crossed. We're going to have virtual ICAST next week, and we'll know a little bit more then, hopefully.
So tell me, how did air shows begin for you, Jodie? When did it start?
Well, I decided I want to be a pilot pretty young. I wasn't really sure. I never liked going the beaten path. So airline flying wasn't my main goal. I thought that maybe I'd be a corporate pilot, go on vacations with rich people that I flew wherever. I thought that sounded cool. And then one day I was sitting and watching the Red Bull Air races on TV with my dad when he dropped me off at the flight college that I went to. And I was like, man, that looks really cool. And I really was too afraid to admit that I wanted to do it because it seemed so far-fetched. And kind of very low-key over the next couple years, I started to tell people, like, I think it'd be really cool to do that. And looked at what it would take to get qualified. Because at that point, I was a private pilot with like 60 hours when it really started to inspire me. So I looked through and I found out, okay, the criteria at the time was you need to be top 50% in the world competition in aerobatics in Unlimited and have a surface level airshow waiver. So when I moved to BC, I started instructing there and I found a school that had aerobatic planes. And I got checked out on them. I kind of inadvertently became a tailwheel instructor through it because a lot of aerobatic planes are also tail draggers, and I really took to it, really loved that. And my tail dragger instructor that took me in, his son was an Unlimited competitor. So he became my aerobatic instructor and my coach, and they brought me to my first aerobatic competition in Ephrata, Washington, which is actually where I met my husband.
Right.
You want to know more from Jodie? It's very easy with our Air Sports Promotion YouTube channel, where you can find not only this interview, but all the previous interviews with all our special guests. So right now, all the world is talking about vaccine for the population, which will be provided very soon. But the protection from coronavirus is not the only issue. In aviation, nobody knows just how far the vaccine will affect the pilot's behavior. The American Federal Aviation Association says it hasn't yet determined whether pilots will be able to get vaccinated against COVID-19 and keep their medicals. In a latest statement, the agency said it is waiting for the outcome of an FDA committee meeting on an emergency approval for a vaccine developed by Pfizer. Meanwhile, the Airline Pilots Association is telling its members not to take part in clinical trials for vaccines because they'll lose their medicals, perhaps for a long time. His union is also warning its Canadian members not to roll up their sleeves for science. So our last news item this week comes from Minnesota, USA, where a general aviation pilot found himself lucky in a very unlucky situation. No one was injured when a Viking piloted by the well-known aerobatic pilot Craig Gifford made an emergency landing on a Minnesota freeway. Surveillance video shows the plane threading through lampposts before touching down in the left lane of the highway near New Brighton. While the landing was successful, the plane overtook an SUV in the right lane and its right wing collided with the vehicle. Wow, looks like a scene from an action movie. That's a good link to our Hollywood Hero of the Week. The Red Baron is a 2008 German-British biographical action war film written and directed by Nikolai Muleshon about the World War I fighter pilot Manfred von Richthofen, known as the Red Baron. A shooting schedule from July to August 2006 took place in the Czech Republic, as well as locations in France and Baden-Württemberg in Germany. In post-production, CGI was carried out by Pixelmondo. Actually, there was no real aviation scenes recorded, and Pixelmondo was responsible for all the flying and dogfighting scenes. Producers didn't have any original or even a rebuilt aircraft from the First World War, so they needed to trust the CGI effects. So at the beginning, we have a very sad news story. On the 7th of December 2020, Brigadier General Charles Elwood Chuck Yeager passed away. He was a United States Air Force officer, flying ace and record-setting test pilot. In 1947, he became the first pilot in history confirmed to have exceeded the speed of sound in level flight. On the 7th of December 1972, the Apollo 17 last manned mission to the moon in the 20th century lifted off from the launch complex in Cape Canaveral, Florida. The destination was the Taurus Littoral Valley on the moon. The launch of Apollo 17 was delayed for 2 hours 40 minutes due to a minor mechanical malfunction. When it did lift off, the launch was witnessed by more than 500,000 people. On the 7th of December 1928, flying a Travel Air 3000 biplane over Oakland in California, Iris Louise Thaden established an official FAI world record for altitude of 6,178 meters. Mrs. Thaden surpassed the record of 5,008 meters set by Lady Heath just a few days earlier. Because the altitude at which she intended to fly, Mrs. Faden carried a cylinder of pressurized oxygen and a face mask. On the 9th of December 1936, Juan de la Cerda Cordovu died. He was a Spanish civil engineer, pilot and aeronautic engineer. His most famous accomplishment was the invention in 1920 of the first helicopter called autogyro, a single rotor type of aircraft that came to be called autogyro in the English language. On the 12th of December 1915, the Junkers J-1 made its first flight. It was an experimental monoplane aircraft developed by Junker, and it was the world's first all-metal aircraft. So that's it for today. We'll see you again next week. If you enjoy the show, please give us a like and a share, and don't forget to write to us at news@airsportspromotion.com. Create your account on the airsportsfan.com or contact me directly via Twitter. So as always, stay safe guys, and don't forget to keep your eyes on the skies.